All right. Well, hello. Good afternoon, Brian. How are you today?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing great. Today we have Bryan Paulus with us from Genuine Essiac, a wonderful tea that adds to our health and longevity. And Brian's going to take over and talk about who he is and where he came from and the job that he's on right now. Brian, go ahead.
Okay, sure. Well, I am the owner of a company called GenuineEssiac.com. What we are is essentially a medicinal mixture of herbs with 8 different herbs that I got involved with back in 1986. Essentially, what happened was a family member of ours, my mother's boyfriend's mother, had passed away from pancreatic cancer, and someone found out about this, and they had mentioned this thing called Essiac tea that it may have possibly helped her. And so we didn't think much about it until we told a few friends about it that had cancer, that they could get it, out of all places, a fish market in the next town, this herbal mixture. So we sent them there. We really dismissed that reference to that. Hadn't seen them in a while, and about 8 or 9 months later we bumped into them, and they both went into remission, which of course astounded us because we're like, this is not what we expected. So that started a whole network in the area going to this fish market of all places to get this herbal mixture, and it kept having astounding results with people with cancer. Then we had to dig deep and find out, why does the fish market have an herbal mixture that deals with cancer? And it all has to do with the history of something that's very unusual. A nurse in Canada years ago had a patient that had a lesion on her breast, asked about it, and said, well, it's basically the end of a healing of a breast cancer tumor that went away using this herbal mixture. And she went to an Ojibwe Indian medicine man to get it. So the nurse basically wrote down the herbal formula, didn't do anything with it for 2 years. And then after 2 years, her aunt developed cancer. And so she used it successfully for her aunt's cancer. And when it worked, she was like, wow, we have to do something with this. So she started a clinic in Canada for a decade. And that clinic ran and was so successful that the people petitioned the Canadian government to have that as a means of treatment in Canada. And it failed by 3 votes. And that's when it kind of came in my direction here in the Boston area. She had nowhere to go to continue her work. So she was invited down to work at a research center in Cambridge, right near us. The guy that ran the center was President Kennedy's personal physician. And so she came down at his invite and started by basically addressing the first 4 herbs of the original formula. They assessed what each herb did, and then collectively how well those herbs worked. And then with a team of 18 physicians, they followed up with continuing research, taking other herbs or potentiators and seeing if any of them had merit against cancer. And those that did, they would then try that and add it to the original mix, because they knew the baseline of how well that worked, see if it helped, and then see if another herb would help, and then tweaked it and so on. So at the end of 8 years, ending in 1967, they had a formula that was even better than the original. And so you say, how did that research center get hooked up with the fish market, which referred us? Well, the other fish market that the family owned was right next to the research center in Cambridge, Massachusetts. So the doctor and the nurse would come, and they became great friends. So again, backtracking, the research center is a byproduct of it having to be, no longer used in Canada. It was next to the fish market. We go to the fish market, we tell people, and now people are getting well. So what happened next was, I never expected my life to have anything to deal with health or anything, nor did I even have an interest in. But people at the fish market were trying to run their business, and they asked if we could just do it out of the house or something to take the pressure off, because it was interfering with their business. So we decided to do that. What originally started with just groups of people coming and going at all hours of the day eventually grew to be consolidated into a cancer support group that we had once a month. And when a couple of the people in that cancer support group got well, I don't know, they had connections to a New Hampshire TV talk show called The Kathy Burnham Show back then. And by then it was 1992. So they had a talk show filled up with people on the panel and the audience that just used Essiac tea and went into remission, or were after 5 years considered cured. And they went through, and if you can imagine these old New Englanders just being asked simple questions. Did you have cancer? Yes. What was it? They'd give the type. Did you use any chemo? No. Do you have cancer now? No. And it was pretty basic, but self-evident. But we thought it was so great to see mom on TV. We were extremely naive as to what the aftermath would be, which would be an immense interest. So the next day we found out 1,500 people tried to call the station for it. And we were just a small cancer support group. And so we, in a panic, had to get in touch with Dr. Bruce, the researcher, and say, how do we do this? And so he helped me. We get all these big machines, the scales, got all the particulars, the formula, and I was enlisted because I was available and strong enough to lift the big bags to produce it. I thought I had a good summer job that would last a little while, and that would be it. And here we are now years later, and I'm still doing it. And it's because the demand keeps growing as it succeeds. And so you're looking at this in terms of the success. It's not just for cancer. And it's what I would like to address here. It's because of its overall health benefit that allows you to actually heal from not just cancer, but other diseases, improve your health, improve your digestion. Actually, it's been clinically proven to reverse DNA damage. We're looking at things that have been really scientifically proven to the point where 2 studies have shown this, including one that we funded that was presented, we presented in Canada at a Canada Research Conference. And in 2023, we presented in Santiago, Chile at another conference. So we're really looking into the dynamic that this works, how it works. And, these are becoming more and more evident that the main secret to longevity is really a complete cleansing, not partial, and I can explain the difference later, not a partial cleansing, but a complete cleansing that gets your body to a pristine state where it can actually address without any interference of toxins, not just getting most of the toxins, but all of them. And that's why this does what it does so well, because it actually is a very slow, methodical approach. It's like the tortoise or the hare. It gets it done over many months, but it gets it done to completion. And the end result is you eliminate all the toxins from your digestive tract. You then have clean blood, and clean blood is the life force where everything thrives, absorption of nutrients, the immune response, and energy levels. And I just can't emphasize enough, you clean to that extent, your blood changes, your health changes.
That's wonderful. And let me make sure the audience doesn't have any confusion. This isn't like that cleanse you're going to take on Friday to Sunday. This is a completely different thing we're talking about here,
Exactly. See, I use a comparison all the time that a lot of people think that they'll take a detox and they'll think this stuff really works because I went to the bathroom 20 times this week. And they think I've got it all figured out. I did it. But these are usually a very acute response, meaning they take a very dramatic toll on the body. They can't be sustained. Eventually you get Herx reactions, dehydration, headache. So it can't be sustained. But what you don't realize is what you've actually achieved in this initial harsh detox is comparable to, and I always use this analogy, if you scrambled eggs and you burn the eggs a little and you wanted to get the eggs off the pan and clean it all the way. Well, I could just in the first few seconds get my spatula, scoop out the eggs. I've got 95% of the loose, weight that I want out of the pan. But if I want a clean pan, and that's my objective, the toughest part is that last 5%. It's resistant. We have to soak it. We might need steel wool. We might need to rinse it again and scrub it again. So it's the resistant last layer. So these people that take it, they don't realize that their filter has been 95% clean, but it's ineffective to clean at 95% because unless it gets to its pristine state, it doesn't matter if you have a clogged filter and it's backed up by a millimeter, a half an inch of a contaminant, it still isn't pristine enough to function. Same way your air conditioner, past a certain point, it doesn't matter if it's this much or that much, it's not going to function and bring in clean air. So if you look at your intestines the same way, Essiac tea is done 3 times a day, and it's done because it's a moderate cleanse, done systematically 3 times a day on an empty stomach. So you're basically the fiber and the cleansing takes place in intervals 3 times a day. They talk about death by 1,000 cuts. This is cleaning by 1,000 cuts. And what this does over several months is completes the process of getting your digestive tract totally clean and addressing your digestive tract health health is what I talked to President Kennedy's doctor about, Dr. Charles Bruce. This is a man that was so far ahead of his time that we're just now finding out that he was right in his research that he was doing in the 60s. Essentially, what he talked about is a porous, your digestive tract has a porous absorption and elimination function. And he talked about no matter who you are, you're eventually going to aspirate or eat something that you shouldn't. And your body, when it ingests this, it actually, your body gets to the point where it has to do something with it. It can't identify what to do with it. And it just kind of shrugs and says, I'm doing nothing with it. So if you picture a pore in your intestinal walls, for example, it just leaves it there. But now what happens is you have the next thing that has to be processed or digest. It tries to go into throughout your digestive tract. It gets to that clogged pore, it's backed up. Doesn't function, doesn't process, builds waste, and it cascades because it now, in building up, flows over to the next pore. So over time period, these little things, cascadingly, they get thicker and more accumulated. So now what you have is almost a sludge-like consistency on the walls of your digestive tract, which are also trapping the contaminants on the way by. What Essiac tea does is wash. A little. It's not going to do like the other things that just get you abruptly, but you have to stop. And when you finally get to like about a four to 6 month mark, you get to the point where it's done its job to completion. Now what you have is a pristine digestive tract, and you're having absorption at the level that it's designed to be without the interference of toxins. You're getting nutrient absorption, a stronger constitution to fight disease, energy. But another thing that you're getting is a clean bloodstream, because what used to flow through the digestive tract into the bloodstream is no longer flowing in, and your body's producing new blood cells at the same time. So inevitably they clean up. It's almost like the old streams in the 70s that they eventually clean up. But using that analogy, when you have the sediment that's in there, just like, the old Coke cans and debris and the polluted rivers would collect near like a rock or a stick hanging out in the side of the river, and that's where the trash would collect. Well, the debris in your body that's flowing into your bloodstream, it collects wherever it meets resistance, at an organ, in a joint, at a gland. And that's where your body starts to, when it gets enough collective toxins, it actually grows tumors as a protective response. This was something described to me in 1986. It's found out to be true, but what normally was supposed to happen is essentially like a containing cell would be the tumor, and then the tumor would have this capability of sending out a chemical signaling to the rest of the body and through the bloodstream. That chemical signaling would lead the white blood cells in a path and direct it towards the tumor, and it would break it up naturally. But now what happens is that kind of outer soot, you have that little contaminant, that little tumor, before it can actually send out its messaging, very quickly another layer settles on it. And it's like an encasement, like an egg encase. It's just signaling is interrupted. So now you can have white blood cells that are right next to a tumor. They don't get the signaling. They don't even know that right next to it the problem is. Another issue is that layer that lands on stimulates growth even more, because contaminants, contribute to growth. But lastly, the contaminants on a tumor, for example, they emit this haze of it's almost like hydrogen peroxide. And this little microenvironment of haze is where the defense cells of the tumor, they live off of that. So it strengthens the defense cells of the tumor. And that's the issue. And all these contaminants are interfering. And your body also has to fight the contaminants on the way to the tumor just to get there. So now, just to kind of backtrack, you clean out your digestive tract. It now produces clean blood, eliminates the inflow of toxins. Eventually, that outer layer erodes, it dissipates. So what do you have now? Absorption of nutrients at the highest potential, no contaminants to interfere on the way to the tumor. And by the time it gets to the tumor, the outer layer, basically the cells die off because they're malnourished, because there's no more contaminant to feed them. So it's the apoptosis takes place. They die, and there's no more resistance layer of defense cells on the tumor. Your body goes in, the red blood cells get the signaling to go in. They do what God designed. They naturally flow into the tumor, and they basically break it up, and it passes naturally. So the clean bloodstream is the end result of a long, methodical, clean digestive tract, which just takes time. And that's what makes Essiac different. It's something that you can stay on every day to give yourself the time to complete the process.
That's tremendous. Now, is there a way to monitor your health or your bloodstream to see that it's working during the course of this?
Yeah.
Are there biomarkers that'll change in those, let's say, 6 months, 4 to 6 months that you're taking the tea that will change?
Yeah, I'll put this in perspective.
Yeah.
This is not a linear thing always. What you'll find is just like when you have a headache. You've had an experience with aspirin, and if you take your aspirin and 5 minutes later your headache is worse, through experience that the headache didn't get worse because of the aspirin. It just hasn't had time to do what it's supposed to. And your headache started with momentum of getting worse, so momentum in the wrong direction. So that's the contributing factor for it. Same with this. You're going to find initially, it doesn't just snap and reverse things. You have to progressively clean. So in initial phases, you have the momentum going this way of cancer. Essiac has to clean the body to kind of get it strong enough to fight the resistance and push back. So the initial response may not be indicative of progress in the right direction, but I can assure you when it eventually gets to the point where the blood is clean, as I said, God designed clean blood for the immune response to thrive. When it gets there, it pushes back. So if you monitor as you progress towards the 4.5 to 6 month mark, this is on average. Some people respond quicker, and I never know why, but you use everything you can to monitor this. The cancer test scores, every aspect of blood test, everything to monitor the size of a tumor. Everything is in game. And what we've done is so unusual. It's so good at doing this. We've had a money back guarantee on this for 20 years now, 21 years now, because at the 6 month mark, it's so effective at doing what we say it is, which is to produce improvement, shrink tumors, improve test scores, that there's a serious lacking of accountability when it comes to health products, especially alternatives. I had an identical twin brother that died from ALS, and we lost 30, they took us for $30,000 and they promised us the world. And it was a death that was horrific. But in that, he looked at it, it just was like, you should let people know that they can never be taken advantage of, because it was a high financial stress for the family. So in response to that, we did this. And we do that not only to protect the customers, because they need to know that it's what we say it is and make it impossible to take advantage of, but also as a reflection of the fact that it's a high consistency, not a moderate consistency of success. Because if we had, say, for example, 30% failure rate, 30% of our profits would be coming right out. We'd produce it, go out the door, we'd pay for it, and then we'd have to give them the money back. It would be a recipe for disaster to have it if it were only 70%. But because it's so high, we stand behind it without hesitation, because the research and the heroes are Dr. Bruce and Reen Case, the ones that developed this. I've been handed through circumstances, something that just works at an astounding rate. And I'm like, yeah, we got to do that. And we also take care of people that can't afford it, because this is something that has to be accessible to everyone, because to make money, something that is an obstacle in someone getting healed, is something that Dr. Bruce said is absolutely not going to be the case. If you're going to do this, everyone gets accessibility. So we work with everyone. And what seemed like the worst business design in the world, which is to give it out for free, explain it in context. He said, if it wasn't as good as we say it is, well, yeah, you'd send it out, it wouldn't work, you get animosity, and you go bankrupt. But it's as good as we say it is. So you can't lose if you get it to someone and it works as often as who do you think is going to be telling the world about it? So we've grown from this small group of, 1,500 to hundreds of thousands. And it's just like an unstoppable train. It just keeps going and keeps. And so I got called to do something I never would have guessed. And yet, best thing I could have asked for.
Yeah, that's terrific. What a story, and what a life journey you've been on, and a pleasant one with the reactions and the responses that you've gotten. It just sounds like a very fulfilling way to live your life. Let me ask you. Okay, great. Someone like me, okay, let's use me as an example. I've had 5 melanomas from skin cancer. Unfortunately, we've caught it early. I have surgery, we cut it out. Looks good so far. It's really been the last 5 years I've had these things. Now, can people use it as a preventative, and I'm not talking about the guarantee, or to make me healthier so I don't get more melanomas, hopefully, or is there a process for those people who don't have already saying that they have something, a response?
Yeah, a lot of people oversell something and it underperforms. It's just the opposite. It is the ultimate preventative and improver of health. This is something because of that. It's just very simple. It's doing what should be done to improve health at its highest level and create the resistance against disease. As a preventative, it's great. As overall health improvement, it's great. I mean, I've had some astounding things. In our research that we did last was in 2023, we took, for example, X-ray technicians who were exposed to low-dose radiation over time, which is the most dangerous exposure. We monitored their blood for a year, gave them Essiac tea. That's all we did. Monitored their blood afterwards. 33 to 50% reduction in DNA damage or reversal for everyone in the group. That's what we found. So This is really basically doing away with the repair, and it's the breakdown of the body that's causing the cancer, the mutations. This is doing the opposite. It's the reparations of the body. As a matter of fact, I get, I have people that you've got to see, like, I got to see if I can find this for a second. Give me 10 seconds. I know I can find it.
Yeah, please do. That's fine.
I know I have it. If I have to just type in hair. Okay, right. Okay, so here we go. You sound crazy. This is what we get all the time. This is a picture of a man, the guy in the middle right there.
Yes.
That with the gray hair. That's him with dark hair afterwards, after using Essiac. The DNA repair and damage, actually, we've got so many people that have had their hair. This is a post that you posted in our group. It changes the hair back to the original brown color. So,
wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's some of the weirdest things. You mentioned your skin.
Yeah.
I wish I could play all of these. I just have them all to my access. If you go on my group, you'll see, if you go to genuineessiac.com, which is my website,
okay,
and Essiac is ESSIAC, genuineessiac.com. Right at the top, you'll see a thing that says video testimonial. You'll see one of them from a man from a town a few towns away from us, from Roland.
Yeah.
Roland had a quarter-sized lesion on his head, and he took Essiac, and it flaked off, and it's gone. And I have another guy, Tim Quinn, and you'll see in that grouping, he talked about his nose. Everything came out with roots that flaked off. What you'll find is in particular with skin cancers, that's the way it's most commonly done. So I have tons of people that are using this for skin cancer. As a matter of fact, I almost forgot about this. Okay, I forget. My manager's wife in 2019, she developed skin cancer, and she opted, because obviously her husband knew all about this, to just use this. And she used it. 6 months later, she had a thing on her nose, and you'll see she's one of the testimonials, and it's completely healed, completely gone with no other intervention or treatment. It sounds crazy. I sound crazy saying it. But these are the real stories, and you can see them, real people testimonials. But there's also a failure rate, and the toughest part about this is very small, but I have to deal with that too. And that was the toughest part about getting involved, because the reality is, if I were to tell you this is an absolute thing and without struggle, that would be a lie too. You'd be like, that'd be crazy. It's nothing, that. That'd be like, this is with some struggles and with some considerations. The time element and certain aspects of cancer are a challenge, or certain health issue, because it takes X amount of time. Using the headache analogy, if you were expected to heal a headache in 12 minutes or pass away, you'd be like, oh, this aspirin doesn't work. What a horrible thing. It didn't work. Same thing with this. If you're given a couple of months to live, you'd think, oh, Essiac's not good because it didn't work, and I was, 2 months it didn't work. Simply, they got to us. It takes time. But in some rare exceptions, and I never know who they are, I have some quick responders, and I never know who they are. It's a small minority, but they kind of get that response and energy back more than others. So there is a consideration of expected longevity. Do you have the 6 months for this to work? But even then, even if you don't, there's a small group of that grouping that still will have it work if they have a good initial response. Another issue is if it's in the brain. Blood flow being the major aspect of how the immune response works. Blood-brain barrier restricts some of the flow. It's tougher to get in there. So we have about a reduction of about 50% when it gets into the brain and success. But those are the tough ones. But I used to feel, when I first did this, like, it's going to be awkward. Now I realize I don't feel comfortable with anything that doesn't end well, but it's so rare. And I know if I can just tell these people the reality, what the challenge is, they appreciate the reality. They don't resent me if I explain that it's not very likely to work in 2 months and it doesn't, and I frame it accurately. It's all I can do, and know I'm giving them the best in a truthful way, and that the exception to the rule is it not working to a dramatic degree. I live with that kind of balance of truth and expectation being conveyed, and that's how I feel blessed to be doing it. But it can have its times,
Okay. Yeah, I know. I understand. I totally understand that. Nothing's perfect, and nothing applies to everyone. We're all different. Our situations are different. Our time frame on the earth is different. We're trying to maneuver that the other way. It's not going to work all the time. Some of us are going to get hit by a car when we cross the street, and there's some things that just aren't in our control, and it has to do with your body's response to different things. How you do. Some people have a lot of cancer. Some people will go through life with none. And we don't know why. So I understand that. Let me ask you one question that people would wonder. Are there any side effects? If I go on this program for 4 to 6 months, 3 times a day, do I have to worry about any side effects? Is something might happen?
Well, the way that it works, as I described, it eliminates talk. And because of that, historically, people that get, say, for example, diarrhea or loose stools, it's the byproduct of a contaminant that's making you sick that you have to expel. But usually it's done with a very unsuccessful expelling of actual toxins. It's moderately successful. Essiac tea has a very efficient ability to get that out. As a matter of fact, the means that it gets rid of, disease in the end is by eliminating toxins over time. Some people, about 25% of the people, will experience diarrhea, but when looked at in this context, it isn't that dramatic emergency response that dehydrates, sickens. It's more, for lack of better words, a healthy diarrhea with some digestive discomfort, but nothing too significant, with the end result being it's actually doing what the other diarrhea doesn't do as well, and that's getting rid of the waste alongside. So it's a productive thing, although it is diarrhea. So it's not considered a side effect because it achieves a benefit. About 25% of the people in the initial stages of using this will have loose stools, more frequent runs to the bathroom, but nothing dramatic. And it's because it's such a mild to moderate thing that it's used 3 times a day, but it's also because of that it doesn't have a dramatic response. No Herx reactions, no side effects. If you go on the internet, you'll read all sorts of aspects of this, many out of context, many armchair quarterbacks, and many people with an agenda because it's so good they want to attack it. One of which is, be careful if you have X ingredient. Could cause a problem. But what they don't realize is that 8 years of research, the first thing they flushed out was appropriate use of each ingredient at the safe level as to not cause any issues or side effects. So this is a carefully balanced formula with dramatic amounts of differing proportions based on the appropriateness of each herb. So you're not going to have any sort of Herx reactions, headache, but you could have digestive discomfort, a little bit of bloating, and in very rare cases, people that are sick, digestively backed up all the way to the top, sometimes some belching, even a little acid reflux for a little. But it's a relatively short period because it's stirring it up to get it out, and it passes in a few days. So that's an expectation, but it's an understandable one because it's a detox producing elimination.
Right. No, that's good. Okay. Well, that's nice. All right. We appreciate hearing about this because I had never heard of it until recently, and I think that's the case with a lot of people. So to get this word out is a good thing. And hopefully it'll get to some people who need the help of this. Is there anything else you can teach to the audience, or you want to say to the audience before you leave to give them something to take away from today? Anything else you haven't touched on?
Well, the general consensus is people think it's targeted to a very narrow or an extreme amount. It's somewhere in between. It's not a fix-all for everything. It will not do something for a neurological issue. But there are certain things as they pertain to clean blood that you can kind of link to this. So diabetes, for example, clean blood is the byproduct of clean blood is that the toxins that would go into the pancreas, for example, limit the function of the pancreas, therefore it can't process as well. The liver is also part of a diabetic. You kind of have an interchange between the liver and the pancreas. You clean the blood, you clean contaminants from both. They work. As I mentioned, arthritic conditions, it's basically contaminants collecting in the joints. So you have things like cholesterol, high blood pressure. These things, stay patient, read the directions because they're very particular. It's not easy, but there are ways to make it taste better by just adding a little fruit, doing it with respect to the empty stomach instructions, but really taking the time to become versed in it. And you'll find that the health benefits, if you're patient, are extraordinarily consistent amongst them. And I have a brother that's 10 months older than me who doesn't take Essiac tea. He's been completely gray for 20 years. And I keep telling him that, you got to take it. And
let's see.
He doesn't. He just, it's like, I honestly think that what has happened, I'm 59 years old, has been the byproduct of what this does. And I feel blessed to just, by happenstance, not only to be doing it, but to be, having this to use as well. So, if you were interested just to give it a 6-month aggressive use, just one time, it's not like we're trying to fear you to be on it every day. Because after 6 months, if you use this, it's like house cleaning. There's only so much you need to do after spring cleaning. You kind of got it all set. You can take some time off. So if you did a 6-month aggressive approach, I think you'd see what so many people see. It's a lifetime of contaminants leaving your body, and your body at that moment thriving like you never expected because you basically reversed the contaminant buildup of a lifetime. So really that's it, the time frame and commitment of 6.
Okay. So when I go and I sign up to start this process, I'm not signing up to drink this for the rest of my life.
You can, and some do.
You can. It's safe enough to do that.
I have it, so I do it every day.
Okay.
But some do, some take intervals after they've done it, some take maintenance. It's just really your choice after if you have cancer, for example, drink it at least until you're cancer free. Then you have the option as you see fit. We don't try to fear monger to get people fear to drive them to buy more. What we do is educate them on their options at the time and let them make a decision, because people don't want to be owned by something that's overly taxing, but they want to do intervals of responsible management of the health for reasonable amount of time. And 6 months is a commitment, but it's worth doing.
That sounds good to me. I mean, I know a lot of times, you go in, you see your oncologist, and the answer is, okay, surgery. There's no other alternatives. You're pushed to a certain doctor to work on your condition, and you don't even have any other choices in front of you. They're just sending you down one road that hasn't worked for years, but that's all they know. So this is nice that there is an alternative to take care of your own health.
It's understandable that they say that. It's what they know.
Right.
So, and I'm not an extremist either. There are times when Essiac has its limitations. There have been people with really brain tumors. Of the one exception, a rare small degree of people with brain tumors that are really pressing against a lobe that have immediate risk of causing problems. Anyone can take this. You can take this with any condition, any medication, any supplement. It is just as safe without side effects. The only rare condition is like 1 in every 500 to 1,000 people will have a particular tumor in a very, for lack of a better word, problematic area, in which sometimes the tumor, any minimal expansion, could cause an issue with a lobe in the brain. That's the only consideration. It's a rare brain aspect, but everyone else, all ages, including children, dogs. We have a dog book. We have I don't even know if I have it, but there's a dog book that was written about pets that healed, and they went to all the Essiac companies and they found Genuine Essiac.com is their feature company, our company, because they found woeful lack of evidence or consistency in the claims of other companies. So there is a difference. If you just look up Essiac and go to another company, you'll see our letter of authenticity from the actual doctor, but it's unregulated. Because it's unregulated, it's like the Wild West. People throwing out claims, fear mongering, putting together things, charging extraordinary amounts. If you buy certain amounts over 6 months, it'll cost you about $1 a day, which is our end result. We want to keep it affordable, but the opportunistic, the masses are flooding in with lies and fake formulas. And that's been an issue, but we're here to battle it and inform people. So we do.
That's terrific. That's terrific. I really appreciate your time and introducing us to this. Everybody's been touched by cancer in their lives. I'm sure by middle age, we've all known many people, some who have succumbed to the disease and some who are still living on.
My dad.
Yeah. So
my dad actually used it for his lung cancer in 2003. By May of 2004, he went into complete remission. He died of COPD, not cancer, because it was a result of smoking, but 8 extra years later. So we get 8 extra years with cancer-free. So
that's tremendous. And I'm sorry for your loss, but that is a wonderful thing. You got more time.
We get to, believe me, it was worth good memories. So yes.
Have a little opportunity. Thank goodness. All right. Well, is there something you can, for the audience who wants to pursue this and try your Essiac tea to see if it can help them? What do you have for them today?
Well, if you want, since you're on this podcast, I'd love to offer every one of you a discount. First of all, you go to genuineessiac.com, which is genuine, GENUINE. And then the word Essiac is very tricky. E as in Edward, S as in Samantha, S as in Samantha, I as in ice cream, A as an apple, and C as in cat. GenuineEssiac.com. If you go there, there's a coupon code that you can put in there. And it's the number 10, followed immediately by the word discount in all capital letters. So it's 10 discount, and you'll have a good savings on that. Is kind of my appreciation for being actually asked to be on this. I appreciate it very much. So and just
that's very
if you have any questions, go on to Facebook. There are all sorts of confusing Essiac groups on Facebook, but if you go to one called Genuine Essiac Users, that's our group, and you'll find facts instead of fear. We just throw the facts, throw the facts, throw the facts. If you go elsewhere, you might be horrified at what you find, because in the absence of fact, fear dictates. Some of those lies stick even harder than the truth, and they come to our group and eventually go, okay, I got it now. I didn't realize that I was being lied to, but it's a battle. As the
No, I understand that. I understand that. In that industry, that's dealt with every day. I'm
no
sure
regulation.
Anything like that. But there should be a link right here on the video to get you there. If not, you know where to go. It's genuineessiac.com. but I believe there should be a link by now on there on our recording here. But
Okay.
anyway, Bryan, it's been a great pleasure to get to know you and to hear about what you're doing and the tea that you're offering to people and helping others and not taking advantage of them with exorbitant fees and taking their life savings to try to
Yeah.
help their health.
Thank you.
It's a great opportunity for those of us who could use your help. So thank you for your time and the discount that you're
Being
providing.
here, everything
Wonderful.
about being here. Thank you, everyone.